Real people, real opinions.
Real Talk Radio. The multi-award winning Niall Boylan Show.
Ireland's classic hits.
Now, I'm going to read you out this email, and I think this email, if you have children with special needs, you're going to find it maybe somewhat offensive to some degree, but I'll come at the end of it. Let me clarify exactly what I want to talk about and why I wanted to talk about this email. Hi, Niall, please don't read out my name. I have something I'd like to discuss on your show, please. It's of a sensitive nature, and I know people will hate me for what I have to say. My wife and I have two sons, 12 and 14. The 12-year-old is about to join his brother in secondary school. It's a grand school. It's very safe and close to where we want to be, and we're very lucky. The problem is there seems to be a lot of students with disabilities and extra needs in the school. I don't know if this is in every school or just this one, but in my oldest son's class, there are about 8 kids with special needs or who don't speak English very well. The kids stay in the class most of the time, as far as I can tell, and some of them have helpers. Well, they're called SNAs, by the way, the helpers. Anyway, to be honest now, it has affected my son's learning. He's very bright, and he says he is bored in some of the classes because the teacher is helping the other weaker children. He wants to do medicine in Dublin and is about to go into his junior cert year. I am mad because I don't think he's getting the best education he could get. He could be getting, and I don't think it's right for the teacher who has to go slow down the whole class for a small number of children. My wife agrees, but she won't say anything. She says we can get him grinds or extra tuition when it comes to the Leaving Cert. But Niall, that is more money out of my pocket. I remember when I was younger and some children with special needs had their own classes, and that seemed to work fine for them. It is ridiculous to lump them all into one class. Well, I do remember those days. What do you think? I want the best for my son, and I can see his education being negatively affected by children with special needs. Medicine is very competitive, and life is hard when you get to the real world. I don't agree with pandering to every child so that they all slow down. I guarantee you that this isn't happening in private schools in Dublin. None. So I suppose the question he's asking is, should children with special needs be educated separately? That's what he's kind of saying. And that seems quite shocking, doesn't it, that somebody would say that, in the year 2023. What he refers to, there was a time in Ireland where the slow kids, as they used to call them, and that was the reference or the words they used that he used in his emails. In other words, children with needs and special needs, were all put into one class. Those who will remember back when I went to school back in the 1970s, it was called the remedial class. I remember in our particular school, there was 4 classes in my year. I think there was 4. And room 4 was the remedial class. And that was for the kids who were, a little bit slower to learn. And they got, I suppose they slowed down the curriculum for them somewhat. And then there was the number 1 class, the A class, for the SWATs, as we used to call them. And kids were broken down into that. But then what happened in the 1980s? There was a new way of educating children. The new way of educating children was that you mix them up. And that helped those children who were a little bit slower to learn or learn differently. And it also helped those children as well who were a little bit faster to learn to understand others. So it may have slowed them down. Maybe he's right in saying that. It could have slowed down their education, but at least it made it equal for everybody to learn at the same rate, if possible. And those kids who may have been a little bit slower to learn came on in leaps and bounds. They weren't just ignored and left in the background in some class, as people used to refer to as the remedial class. But he believes that's the way we should go back to. Now, there are schools in Ireland still that have what they call reading units. In other words, for children with special needs, they do have a special class that they would go to for a certain period of time during the day. It's a reading unit where they would have SNAs and they would have help. And so they're not always in the main class, in mainstream. And there is no doubt that the one part I will agree with this particular person is that sometimes if your child has mild to moderate learning difficulties, they may thrive better in mainstream school rather than a class, say, for example, for people with special needs, because it challenges them more and it helps them to get through life a little bit quicker. So there is an argument for that. But his argument is that we should separate them because it's unfair to children who don't have special needs. Now, that's what I want to debate. Were we wrong to do it then? Certainly the language we used in those days was wrong. But is he right? Is it holding back kids that don't have special needs? And is that fair? The number is 087 188 0008. Maybe you have a child with special needs. Maybe you have a child who doesn't have special needs and you agree with him. The other point he makes as well is, by the way, that a number of children in the class don't speak English, but I don't know how that's going to hold his child up. The number is 087 188 0008. 087 188 0008. Is he right in saying that, children with special needs in the class are holding up other children? And let me go to Patrick. Patrick, you're on Ireland's Classic Hits Radio. How you doing, Patrick?
I'm good, Niall. Yeah, and yourself?
Good, Patrick. I mean, is he right?
No, I think he's a bit of a dinosaur, to be honest with you.
Yeah, well, that was kind of old way of thinking, isn't it? You kind of put kids who were slow into one class. It was the old way we did it.
Yeah, and then say when they finish their education or whatever, and they go to whatever they go to after secondary school, and have that on their CV, would that be looked upon because employers see this thing and he's not normal, stands out and then they mightn't get jobs or anything like?
Yeah, and what I used to find was that in those classes, as they call them back in the 1970s, the remedial class, those kids left school younger because they didn't see an education for themselves, because the teachers didn't really care too much about them, I don't think, because they were considered the slow kids of the school. And it was so wrong and so unfair to do that to kids, and instead of encouraging them and helping them. And the idea then that we mix them with kids who are cleverer maybe or faster learners was a much better idea.
Yeah, let them fulfill their potential that they have themselves,
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise you hold them back then by putting them all in and putting a label on them.
What about his point that his kid, lucky for him, is a very clever kid, and he believes that the class has been slowed down by children with special needs and children who don't speak English in the class?
Yeah, well, that's just looking at it from his kind of a selfish point of view, because his kid is very clever. He won't really be slowed down, So
you believe it's a selfish
clever
attitude?
Kid will be able. Well, it is, because a clever kid will be able to go at any pace, like a slow down or fast pace. Either way, he can take it.
Yeah, why doesn't this clever kid do a bit of reading when he gets home if that's how clever he is? Do you know what I mean?
It seems like the minority wants to be accommodated for the majority.
No, I get you.
Yeah. So
it's kind of you're right. It's kind of backwards thinking, isn't it? Yeah, it is.
It's a bit like saying, this guy that's maybe this super brain like an Einstein, whatever, and he's the only one in the whole school, and it's a bit like saying, well, the whole school should accommodate him,
Yeah. Okay, well, stay there for a second. Let me go to John as well. John, how are you doing?
Yeah, hey Niall, hey Radio Land. Before you go any further, Niall, I have to say you were speaking about the hate bill legislation that's going to be put through the Oireachtas and all the rest of it. That is anti-constitutional. So this government cannot pass it whether they like it or not.
Well, they will
or
pass.
neither can the Oireachtas.
It's already, John, it's already been passed.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is it's against the constitution of this country. So how
then the first person who gets prosecuted will have to test it in the High Court. That's the only way out of it.
That to me if we have a constitution there saying that you have a right to free expression, free speech and all the rest of it, then there's no way any legislation can supersede that.
Well, that's up to the High Court to decide. The Minister for Justice seems to be ignoring that fact.
I couldn't care about the Minister for Justice or this Leo or Martin or the rest. Quite frankly, the Irish people need to stand up now and put them out of government straight away.
There's an election coming up soon. You can vote with your feet.
No, they need fresh elections.
But by the way, can I mention, when it comes to this piece of legislation, the election is kind of pointless because all government parties, the Green Party, Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil and Sinn Féin, all voted in favour of this legislation.
Yeah, but the point is the people didn't. The Irish people didn't vote for it. So this idea that it was just politicians voted for it, the Irish people today did not vote for this. So as far as I'm concerned, that legislation has no funding or has no relative.
Okay, I can see your frustration. But I tell you, John, we'll dip into it again. Hang on, John, we'll dip into it again another night. Okay.
In law today.
Okay.
It's not relative in law today. Quite frankly, it's just being pushed by Leo and his gang.
Okay.
So as far as I'm concerned, Niall, it has no relatively.
Okay, well, whether you like it or not, it has been passed, and it'll go. With John, it has been passed. It'll go to the president in September to be signed. We'll fight about it then.
He needs to say no. He needs to stand up and say no.
Okay, John.
If he's worth the start, he needs to stand up and say no.
That's great. We've covered it loads of times, and I will cover it again. I promise you. All right, but getting back to what we're talking about. The person in the emails.
No, it just boils me blood, Niall.
Boils me blood. That's okay.
That they're pushing this.
I get it. You're not
people
going
are
to stop
not standing up today and they're not putting this government out because they're just destroying the Constitution, or trying to destroy the Constitution of this country.
Okay.
And as far as I'm concerned today, Niall, this piece of legislation, hate speech, has no place in Irish society today.
Okay, you've made that point. You've made that point about 5 times, John, and I'm not going to disagree with you. All I'm saying is, I will. Well, I just spent a half an hour talking to Senator Crogwell about it, and we spent last week talking about it and the week before as well. Okay. Anyway.
Well, that's why I wanted to raise it there with you, actually, now, because it is too important not to be talking about today.
We get it. I know, absolutely agree with you. I do agree with you. And RTE is kind of...
I'm going forward as well.
Okay.
I'm going forward.
We will talk about it again, John, and I promise you will be allowed to come on to talk about it then when we do.
I know, you want to talk about this case that you've...
read out,
your email.
Yeah.
Okay, my point is, and I am a dinosaur before you start, whoever that guy was, that person has every right to have his child educated and not being held back in school or whatever he's been held back in today. The fact of the matter is, it's his kid, and this idea of inclusivity, I don't buy any of that rubbish either.
Well, when you talk about inclusivity, inclusivity means everybody. That means children with special needs. So what do you do? So what do you do if children have special needs? Just put them off into a special little class and just ignore them there, just leave them there. They'll be grand.
No,
is that what you're saying?
What happens is, with that email today, that guy has look, Niall, if I had children today and I was in that similar situation, I know I keep saying the same thing. If I had children today and I was in exactly the same situation that man is, I would be putting my child first, nobody else's. Period.
There you go, Patrick. He put his child first. Exactly what you said, Patrick.
Put me on quick.
Oh, okay.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, well,
put you on.
That's neither here nor there now.
I will, Eileen, in a second.
I mean, that's just like being selfish and not thinking about the rest of the other children.
No, it's his kid. He doesn't have to think of anybody else. It's his kid. Why should he have to think of everybody else's kid in the classroom? It's his kid. It's his kid's education going forward, not everybody else's. We need to get away from this inclusivity bullshit.
It's not inclusivity bullshit. It's having respect for people who may not be as quick at learning as his kid. Well, hang on. Eileen wants to talk to you. Hang on, John. Eileen wants to talk to you. Wait, John. Eileen, how are you doing? You're on Ireland's Classic Hits Radio.
How you doing, Niall? How are you?
Good.
John, come here. I'll agree with you with the hate speech thing, but I'll disagree with you what you're saying just there. I have a special needs child, and she's in mainstream school. And I wasn't putting her into a special school because the way it is, she's had to being brought on leaps and bounds by all the pupils. And she didn't hold anybody back. She has a special need, or she has an SNA teacher at all the time. So you're talking about that man looking after his. Fair enough, he can look after his child. I'm looking after my child. I look after my child. That's one thing. And I'll tell you something now. I think it's a disgrace the way people are backwards now, because that's what you are being. You're being backwards. People need to be brought forward now. No, John, let me talk to me. You're having your little say there. So let me talk now. No. Well, come here. I'm going to sing a song if you keep on. La 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 la. Now, are you ready? Are you ready for me, John?
John, hang on. Let her finish what she has to say, and then I'll let you respond to it, okay? Otherwise, I'm going to have to listen to her singing again. Yankee Doodle went to town. So, John, hang on. I'm going to lower you down for a second, John. Just for a second. Let her finish what she has to say. Go ahead.
Well, my child has epilepsy. Is he still talking?
No, he's finished. Go on.
Right, well, here, and I'll tell you. My child has epilepsy, and she's a class of special needs as well. But she is after coming on. She's going into 5th year now, and the whole way through, she's just brought on leaps and bounds. She's exempt from Irish. She doesn't have to do Irish. She doesn't have to do a few other subjects, but she'll still go in and she'll still participate.
Yeah. And I would agree with you, by the way, from my own experience with my own children, that sometimes putting them into a special school or a reading unit can hamper them because they're not getting challenged as much. So I do agree with you that it can be better if it's possible to keep them in mainstream. Yes, the mainstream school will boost them.
Other kids will boost them and they will help them out and all that. Yeah. And do you know what? It's absolutely... even the girl across the way, her grandchild is going... He's after being accepted into a mainstream school too.
Yeah.
And she was a bit nervous about, him going in. I said, I'm telling you, the best thing he'll ever do, because he will be brought on leaps and bounds. The kids will love him. There's loads of kids in that school now. In my school, the one that I'm in, I'm not going to mention the name of it, but... I couldn't get a better school for her.
See,
You've no idea
there
how-
you go, John. It's done wonders for her
Right,
child
now-
because she's in mainstream school now and she's being challenged and being assisted by other kids who might be a little bit
Okay.
quicker at learning. Do you understand what I'm
Here is
saying?
Here is the point, Niall, of the email, and Eileen.
Yeah.
There's a man there saying that he feels, and correct me if I'm wrong, that he feels that his child has been held back. His child has been held back, and he would prefer his child not to be held back. That is his God-given right.
Well, that's
What's wrong
good.
with that?
Do you know what he should do? Well, what he should do then is put his child into a different school if he
private
thinks that
school
his child
somewhere, yeah.
is lacking.
And why
If his
should he
child is
have
so
to do
special
that,
and so
Eileen?
educated that he should move his child.
See,
into
John, the class, there's 23 students in the class, whatever, it was 42 in my day. 23 students in a class, roughly, right? The teacher has to decide the best speed to move at to accommodate most of the children. Now, you're never going to accommodate everybody, so the kids who are a little bit slower to learn, unfortunately, may fall behind and need extra help. The kids who are really clever, they may get a little bit bored. So, but she has to go at the average speed. You can't be accommodating, Johnny Emailer here and his son just because his son happens to be very clever. You can't do that because you leave everybody else behind.
Well, here's
And you know
another
what?
point,
You know
Niall.
what?
I mean, here's another point. That man could be looking them forward in terms of his kids' education going forward.
Well, then
He
put
wants
him in
the
a
best for
private
his
school
kids.
if you're that concerned about him.
He wants the best. Well, maybe he doesn't have the money to put him into a private school with the cost of living today. Maybe he doesn't have it.
Well, John, come here and I tell you, I was super brains years ago when I went to school. I was really clever with maths. Really clever. I was way ahead of all the other kids. They'd be only starting a thing, I'd be finished. But, I wasn't put any way forward. I just dealt with it. I helped our kids out myself. But that's the way it is in life.
But the point
Everyone
is
has to get a
maybe
chance.
that man is looking. He's looking at his own.
I can
kids and
understand
saying,
what you're
I
saying.
want my son, I want my daughter to do the best they can do and be the best
100%.
they can when they're 18
But come
or
here,
19 years
what
of age.
parent doesn't want their child to be the best they can? What parent doesn't want their child to get the
that
best?
the man was making. That's
Yeah,
exactly what
well, come here, I tell you. But you're talking bull if you ask
I'm
me, because
talking
what
bollocks,
parent
aren't I?
does now? Hang on a minute. Hang on a minute.
Yep.
Hang on a minute.
Mm-hmm.
So every parent wants their child to do well, whether or
Yes,
not
of
they
course
have
they do.
special needs or whether or not they are super brainy.
Absolutely.
Every parent
Absolutely.
does. So you see, so if that man has his child who is really clever and he wants his child to do great, which everybody does. He feels that his child is being held back because
and that was the
I can
message of
understand
his
that.
email.
But hang on a minute. Yeah, I can understand that completely.
That's
but
what the man was
everybody's
saying to you,
entitled.
and you took it the opposite way. That
I
he
didn't
was being
take it. Come here. I didn't
disparaging
take
towards
it the opposite
your
way. I'm saying to you, John, this is what I'm saying to you, that my child has special needs. She's in a mainstream school. She's not. She has an SNA
I've
with her
heard that a few
all
times,
the time. Yeah. So why should she be put into a special school because maybe there's one or two other children in the school that...
Okay, well, hang on a second, because I need to go to Michelle. Before I go to Michelle, there's a text in there that says, no, I think you're being very hard on that person that wrote in. If you saw your child suffering a disadvantage, you would care too. And medicine is extremely hard to get into. Doctors save lives. That child could be supported to achieve his dreams, says Sarah. Well, I would like to think that the school will do that anyway, Sarah, and the child will get enough points to achieve his dream. And if the father's that concerned, well, I suppose you could get grinds. I know they cost money. Well, hang on. Let me go to Michelle first. Michelle, how are you doing? You're in Ireland's Classics Radio. Wait, John.
Or are you just going to keep moving
Well, hang on. Wait till I go to Michelle. Sorry, Michelle, go ahead.
Hi, Niall. How are you?
Good. Go ahead, Michelle. What do you think?
Okay, well, I think firstly, school is a lot more about just, academically educating kids.
Mm-hmm.
It's also about educating them as in how to relate to people,
Life
how
skills,
to work as a group.
Yeah.
Life skills, yes, exactly. And I mean, what life skills is that child going to learn if this is the vibe that he's going to be picking up from his parent at home? It's not really a nice attitude to take on a human stance. This boy could help out people in the class. This boy could also, if his dad so chooses, or his mum, or whatever it be, can also give them extra help at home themselves. They can give them extra work at home. They can work with them in their spare time. There's nothing stopping them from doing that.
Yeah, he's not a baby. I mean, he's clearly fit. Well, he's doing his junior next year, so he's 14 or 15. The parents should sit him down and say, well, listen, if you're way ahead and you know what's going on and you don't need to learn that, maybe help little Johnny across the way. Sit over and sit beside him and ask him, does he need any help? You know what I mean? What harm is that, John? Because the teacher, hang on, John, with the greatest respect, teachers are not stupid either. They will achieve the whole curriculum. You know what I mean? Give them a bit of credit.
I don't get Irish society today, and particularly with the schools, what's going on in these schools today. The fact of the matter is, this man wrote you an email saying that he felt his child was being held back because of certain aspects of the classroom. People in the
children with special needs or people who couldn't speak English.
Special needs and what have you. Now, leaving that the way it is, the fact of the matter is, all the man is saying, and listen to what the man is saying, he feels his child is being held back.
Yeah.
He's looking out for his son. He wants the best for his son. Yeah. And you were talking there about this, that, and the other. The fact of the matter is, the nub to this issue is, the man wants his child to learn and get on.
But there's a limit to what you can get from the education system unless you're willing to pay more money. There's a limit to what you can get. Michelle. Hang on, Michelle. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, well, my kids now are in their early 20s, right? And one of my children went to school with a Down syndrome child. It was inclusion, and everything like that.
Of course, yeah.
My child is exceptionally bright. She's got a brilliant job. She's academically minded. Being in a class with a special needs child did not hold my child back any.
You don't have to have inclusion and everything today.
No. But what I'm saying is, it did not. My child was academically minded. Excuse me, are you being rude here? Thank you. My child was academically. Oh, here we go.
I know. I lower him down a bit. Go on.
Yeah, drag your knuckles off the ground. Why don't you put on your listening ears?
Yeah.
Anyway, as
sounds
I
like
was
Judge
saying,
Judy.
My child was extremely academically minded, right? She still is. But it didn't hold her back any. It made her a better person. It opened her mind as to there's more in the world than just the mainstream schooling. You need to be considerate of other people. It wouldn't hold the child back. If they're going to get places, they're going to get there regardless.
Okay, but hang on. I better let him speak. I better let the knuckledragger speak. Sorry, John, go ahead.
Does not suit everybody today. Period.
No, John, I'm well aware the education system doesn't suit everybody today. But the education system never suited everybody. It suits the majority of people. And then those who are on the boundaries of being exceptionally good or a little bit slower, we try to help them as best we can. That's all you can do.
Concept forced on people today, and everybody is not buying into it.
So what do you want to do? Do you want to go back to the days when I was in school and we had 4 classes? I remember when I went into secondary school and the SWATs were in class A and the remedials, as they used to call them, were in class D. Is that what you want to go back to? And so what happens is then all the people who are slower learners all learn at the same pace and they don't do well. So is that what you want, John? Is that really the way you want to go backwards?
Hang on. I was one of those remedial today, but I still wouldn't stop somebody else from getting on. I was in the slow class today, but there was people ahead of me that were more intelligent than me, and I wouldn't say, "Hang on, you have to respect me. You have to come back and wait for me to catch up with you." I still would not say today that people today who want the best for their son or daughter should have to halt their progress to suit somebody else.
Sorry, Eileen, what are you trying to say there, Eileen?
I said children, that's not the attitude of children in any way. I wouldn't like my child now to be put into a special class. And as it is, she already is.
You said your child to be put in a special class.
No, she explained earlier on that she put her child in mainstream school and not into a reading unit or special class because she wanted her child to thrive.
John, just turn down your volume for a second, John. Will you let somebody else speak? All I'm saying is kids already have... she's already branded with having epilepsy. She's already branded with being special needs. So why should she be put into a special class because someone else in the classroom is a bit more advanced?
Can I ask you one question, if you don't mind?
If a child has brains, you ask me whatever you want.
Yeah, no, I'm not being funny when I say this. You're talking about the history of your child there. What has that got to do with anybody else?
What do you mean?
What history of a child? What are you talking about?
Well, you're saying that your child has this and that. And hang on. You're saying your child has this and that going on at the moment. What has that got to do with anybody else's child?
This is what we're
With the
talking about, the whole
learning and the
subject.
ongoing forward.
This is the whole subject, what we're talking about.
Well, John, because her child is part of the education system, which is to do with every single child. And the educational system has to be flexible to deal with every single child. Stay there, John. Let me go to Joe before I go to the break. Joe, how are you?
Hello, Niall. Good evening. How are you doing?
Good
to talk to you.
Okay, you kind of agree with John.
Well, look, I'm not going to I don't want to be getting into a bit of an argument
You
with
will.
anyone, but,
You will.
Oh, well,
You'll be called a knuckle dragger by Michelle in a second, but go on.
Yeah, but look, I'm not going to offend anyone, but I just, look, everyone is entitled to their view.
Of course.
But of course, unfortunately, that's been taken away from us in most ways. But the way I look at it
Not
is,
on this show, it's not. You fire away and have your view. Whether I agree with it or not, you fire away and have it.
I appreciate that, Niall, and thank you very much. Thank you. I think the problem is that, there's been a problem for years. There's a kind of a class distinction here, really. People kind of from the kind of wealthy backgrounds always kind of had the upper hand when it came to education, and that's and it's still kind of going on today a bit,
Oh, yeah.
And you kind of see it there in the last couple of years. People with special needs, they've been treated very badly by the state. And
I would agree. I would agree with you, yeah.
They've been treated very badly. You saw it there, you remember the documentary there on prime time last year, where there was, I think there were 2 or 3 kids, they were waiting for a place and they didn't even get a place. And it got to the situation that they had to go on the national broadcaster.
That's right. I don't know why you're saying people are going to disagree with you. I'm agreeing with everything you're saying so far, but go on. By the way, I've only got a minute and a half to the news, so make it quick there, Joe. Go on.
Yeah. Well, I think, I still think myself in general that there needs to be a change in the whole setup here, because I think that we're never going to kind of move with the times unless we give everyone equal status. I think that people with disabilities and
but you can't treat everybody the same, because everybody isn't the same. That's the problem, Joe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so you have to have a model of education that is a blunt instrument and suits most people, but not everybody. And then you have to try and help those, above and below. So what I'm saying is, I understand this kid is bored in the class because he's a clever guy or a clever kid, right? I also understand there are kids in the class who are bottom of the class because they're slower at learning. But it's up to us. That's why we've changed the education system over the last 20 years to integrate everybody in together. So as those who are clever will help those who are slower, and those that are slower will, I suppose, help those socially who are clever to maybe understand people better. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's all a learning process for everybody. Now, if you want your kid to be super duper clever, go to a private school.
Exactly. Well, I don't have kids, but I'm only just I wouldn't be an expert in that now, but I'm only just kind of give my own view, really. But you're right, Niall. Yeah, I totally agree with you there, yeah.
Nighttime Talk with Niall Boylan on the home of the 80s and 90s.
Ireland's Classic Hits Radio.
Let me go to Angela. Angela, how you doing? You're on Ireland's Classic Hits Radio.
Hi, Niall. How are you?
Good. You've been listening to John, who kind of agrees with the emailer that it's unfair on clever kids to be held back by children in the class who have special needs.
I know. And I'm just laughing. I'm a special needs assistant. I have been for many, many years, and I can guarantee you that no special needs child holds back another child from learning. You know what I mean? We're always with them. It depends on their disability, to be honest with you, Niall.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and their learning difficulties, Yeah.
If you have a child going into class with echolele, or you know what I mean, that will disrupt the class. But, I mean, that is the greatest load of bullshit I've ever heard, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Well, the emailer is the one who started the ball rolling by saying his kid was clever, and there was 6 or 7 kids in the class with special needs and other kids who didn't speak English very well, and he believed the teacher was slowing down the pace of the class to assist those who don't learn as quickly.
No, it doesn't happen. It doesn't, Niall. I work in classrooms, and that does not happen. We bring in kids who are able to be in a classroom. It's not as if we're bringing in kids who will disrupt a classroom. So he's just, to be honest with you, he's just
delusional.
Yeah.
John, you're still there. You're delusional.
Niall, at this stage, no child is responsible for the educational needs of any other child. So what that woman
that's a fair
talking,
point, yeah. That's a fair point.
talking is bullshit, period.
Although we all have a duty. We all have a societal duty to care about each other, don't we?
Now, at the end of the day, the man said he doesn't want this child to be held back. That's his choice. He's not wrong in it. He's right in it.
I'm sorry. I am very adamant about this. You know, we wouldn't put children
Couldn't care less
into
what
a
you're adamant
classroom.
about.
Well, John, don't be rude. Don't be rude.
No, we wouldn't
Couldn't
put
care less.
children into a classroom who weren't able to be into mainstream.
But it would be fair to say, Angela, that sometimes children who would have a mild to moderate learning difficulty, parents may choose to put them into mainstream classes because they feel that maybe by putting them into a reading unit or a special school will slow them or hamper them, whereas putting them into mainstream will challenge them and bring them up rather than regressing them. So that's a fair point to make, isn't it?
It doesn't happen, Niall. It doesn't. Because we all sit down as a group and we sit down and we see who is able to go into a classroom and who isn't. And if the child isn't able to go into a mainstream classroom, we would not allow that. It wouldn't happen.
See, John wants to go back to the days when I was in school, when your classes were graded. So you had, you know, the clever kids class and then the slow learner class, as they used to call it, or the remedial class in those days. That John wants to go back to those days. He thinks that was the best way of doing things.
Yeah, I mean, he asked me
that. We all know why that was a bad idea.
I went to school many years ago, and I was with two children who we didn't even know what was wrong with them, but they just stood in the corner all day, and that's the truth of God. You know what I mean? They didn't integrate. They did nothing. We work as a team to ensure that if a child is not able.
Oh, it's not rubbish, John.
It isn't rubbish. It isn't.
That's pure and utter. I'll tell you what, guys. That's pure and utter liver rubbish today. We'll just grow up the hell and grow up.
I work.
This inclusivity bullshit again. Oh, everybody has to be equal. Everybody isn't equal. Period. We're not all equal. We all don't see things the same way everybody else sees them. And no kid is responsible for the educational needs of any other kid in their classroom. So stop putting these responsibilities on kids today. This inclusivity bullshit today.
I'm not putting.
Well, hang on. Let her respond to. Let her respond to what you said, John. Go ahead, Angela.
Sorry, I'm getting angry now because
I know. It's okay. Calm down. I'm getting angry at myself listening to them. Yeah.
They are fantastic. If they're able to be in mainstream, yes, do not hold the rest of the class back. I am an SNA. I will pull out a child. I will do whatever I need to do to help that child. But I will not disrupt a classroom. And how dare you say that special needs children should be treated differently? They're not special needs. They might have one little
At the end of the day, there's no way that any child is responsible.
Hang on, John. Hang on, John. Make your point without shouting, John. Will you please?
Sorry,
No, not you, Angela. It's okay. I can understand why you're angry. Anybody be angry, listen to him.
Needs of another child. That's just liberal nonsense today.
I live for these kids. I don't have a special
that's what you do in life. Nobody else does it.
No. But how dare you say that a child...
How dare I say what?
Well, we'll let her finish what she's just about to say. How dare you say a child what, Angela? Go ahead, sorry.
With special needs will disrupt and bring down your child. If your child isn't able for it, then I won't say the word.
Yeah, okay. Now I know where you're going.
Yeah.
It says more about John. To be honest with you, if the child, if this guy's clever child can't deal or help or even assist maybe other children in the class, it says more about his child than it does about the other children.
Can I ask Angela a question?
And the selfish attitude, just like his father.
Hang on, can I ask Angela a question there, if you don't mind?
You can, as long as you don't shout at her. Go on.
Okay, Angela, I'm going to ask you this question like I asked the other lady. What child has any responsibilities for another child's educational needs? What child has any of those responsibilities?
A child does not have any responsibilities.
Because you're...
hang on, you asked her a question, let her answer it. God's sake.
No, a child doesn't have responsibility for another child. And I agree with that 100%. But I walk into a classroom every morning with special needs kids. And they're, you know what I mean?
But that's what you
do. That's what I do. But I do not hold... No, but I do not hold back another child's education.
And that's what this man is saying.
Understand that. This child goes.
That's exactly what this man has said.
Okay, well, hang on both of you a second, because I'm running out of time rapidly, and I need to bring in Eamon on this as well. Eamon, how you doing? You're on Ireland's Classic Hits Radio. How you doing, Eamon?
Not too bad. I don't really want to give my opinion now after all that shouting a bit.
No, John just gets very angry. I don't know, and he makes everybody else angry. Calm down, Angela. Get yourself a cup of tea there. No, I just stay there with me for a second. But Angela, don't go. Sorry, Eamon, go ahead. You kind of agree with the emailer, but maybe not in the same sense John does. But go ahead.
I agree with the email to some extent. But what Angela said there, I agree with her that if there is a child that is disrupting the class, then they should be removed. They're not going to put a child in the classroom that can't be there.
That's our job.
Yeah, that's disruptive, yes.
Yeah. But now, obviously, there is a lack of funding in SNAs, but that's a whole other story. But just from what I've heard of,
Well, they're underpaid apart from anything else, but yeah, that's a whole other
argument. Very much so.
There is. I have heard stories of, autistic children in classes who have, behavioural issues and probably shouldn't be in classes. But that being said, there is obviously some very, very, very bright autistic children as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
But
it doesn't happen.
It does, Angela. It does. I have heard stories. I have heard stories of people that aren't going to make that up.
I think what happens sometimes in those cases, Eamon, to be fair to Angela, and maybe it doesn't happen in Angela's school, but sometimes the schools are not getting the resources from the state to deal with those situations.
Yeah, 100%. That's probably what it is. But to say that,
Sorry.
Go on. No, go on.
Sorry, I'm just saying that you don't put a child into a class who's going to disrupt it. You know what I mean? You don't. I mean, I work in a school with 700 pupils or whatever, and there is no way if there was a child that was causing difficulty in a class that we would.
And I accept what you're saying, Angela, but the school you work in may be well resourced. If you're in a school, say in rural Ireland, that might only have 3 classes, it may not have the same resources to deal with those situations. I think that's the point I'm making. So it's not perfect, the system.
Everybody deserves education.
No, absolutely. Sorry, well, hang on. Just let Eamon finish the point he was making. In relation to the email.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay,
I'm not disputing that, Angela. But there was in the secondary school there, 3 years ago, there was a child attacking teachers. Now, he's obviously autistic and whatnot, but he was kept in the mainstream and he was disrupting everyone every second day,
Yeah. Well,
he attacked teachers. He had, outbursts. Now, he was a lovely lad from what I've heard sometimes, but then when he got overwhelmed, stressed, he just lashed out, and he didn't actually have an SNA at all. So maybe that's saying something. But
right.
I think
I know, but you have to understand. Okay,
hang on. Everybody's phone line is a bit bad. Sorry, Eamon, your phone line is just a bit dodgy there. Can you run up the stairs or out the back garden?
Listen, these children suffer so much, and please understand this. You know what I mean?
I understand it 100%.
They don't go out.
The fact that
I can only hear one at a time. Okay, I think Angela, you've made that point. Sorry, no, it's okay. That's okay. Sorry, Eamon, go ahead.
I
know you do.
I know. I'm not disputing everything Angela is saying. She obviously makes very valid points, but she might be a bit biased on one side.
Of course.
In the fact that these things do happen. Maybe she's in a very well equipped school, but in the vast majority of schools,
they do happen. I'm not denying they happen.
Especially rural schools, it does happen, and it does cause distractions and it does hold people back. Now, again, Angela, I'm not disputing anything you said, but that is the reality, and I can understand why that emailer who sent the email in doesn't want his child to witness that. I don't know the circumstances of the special needs child in question, but I do understand, why he is concerned and wants his child to obviously excel. And if there is a case where a special needs child is holding the rest of the class back or causing a distraction, whatever it may be, then he shouldn't really be there.
Hold back. They don't.
But they do.
Angela, you're talking about the ideal situation, and I don't know the school you're in. I don't want to know. By the way, don't mention it on the air. But it's obviously a well-resourced school. I have to point out again, there's 2,200 primary schools in this country. God knows how many secondary schools in this country, right? And there are schools that are small that are not as well-resourced. And, unfortunately, they may not have any other option but to leave that child in the class who may be a little bit disruptive. So those things do happen, Angela. They do happen.
I know they do now.
Yeah.
But, that is life.
Yeah, I know Eamon accepts that's life, but he is agreeing with the guy in the email that maybe that's a bit unfair on this kid then. That's what he's got to say. He said it in a more mannered tone, I suppose, than John. Sorry, John.
Look,
Yeah, to be honest, I don't agree with John anymore after the way he's carried on.
No. I am telling you, the special needs child does not, if the teacher is good, does not hold back the class.
Okay, well, hang on for a second, both of you, or all of you, Eamon, Angela, and John. I'm just going to bring Michael on as a final caller in relation to this. Michael, how are you doing?
I'm very well, and yourself?
Good, Michael.
I'm listening to this with interest. I'm the father of a special needs young lad who's 16, and I have a daughter who's 18. And my daughter who's 18 is a grade A student, and my son is profound severely handicapped and he attends a special school.
Yeah.
Now, he deserves to be in a special school because he wouldn't be able for mainstream school.
No, he'd fall behind, of course.
But
yeah.
There are an awful lot of people that do deserve to be in mainstream school. We're not all the same. We all have different abilities.
Yeah.
And those people need a break as well.
Yeah.
I'm also an employer. I employ people. I employ 25 people. And I employ 2 special needs people.
Yeah.
Those people wouldn't have the same productivity rate as the rest of the staff. But I would honestly say that they appreciate their job a hell of a lot more than most of my staff do.
Do you know, I was just going to say, I've been to America quite a number of times, and I have to say, when you go to, say, somewhere like Florida and you go into even places like Walmart and you see that they employ people with disabilities. There was a guy in a car park in a wheelchair, electric wheelchair, collecting the trolleys, right? And you can see he loved his job. There was a guy at the counter packing the goods into the bags and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
And he loved his job, right? And he was about 80, well, maybe 70 or 80, but he clearly had special needs, right? And we don't do that for Irish people. We're so bad at dealing with that in this country. And, well, fair play to you, by the way, for doing it. We're so bad at doing it.
We hid them away.
Yeah. But isn't that what I said to John at the start of the show? You know, when I was in school, you know, you had the special needs class, you had the slow learners class, as it was called, or the remedial class. Now, you know, we integrate people. We try and help people by blending people together. And that's what we do when kids are able for mainstream school.
No, the man that wrote in that email is just complaining about his highly intelligent son being dragged back by somebody else. I think he's very greedy there.
It's a bit selfish, all right.
We all have to live in a society where people have abilities and people have disabilities. But I prefer to talk about people's abilities rather than their disabilities, because everybody has some level of ability, and we should bring that out.
Yeah, well, some people are just, everybody's wired a little bit differently, you know. But we all have our own strengths, and we all have our own weaknesses. John,
and any parent of a special needs kid didn't choose to be the parent of a special needs kid.
Yeah,
and my understanding of special needs people has completely changed since I became a father of a special needs child.
Yeah, absolutely. I understand that completely. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, John.
You're missing the point here, and all the thoughts that you had on so far.
I think you're the only one. Have you noticed you're the only one with that opinion, so maybe you're missing the point.
Hang on, Niall, hang on. The emailer clearly said he didn't want his son held back. That's all he said. He didn't say anything about anybody else's kid. He didn't be disparaging towards anybody else's kid. He said he clearly didn't want his kid held back. And you had every caller coming on and giving their stories about this, that and the other. The fact of the matter is, if the man wants his kid to do well, that's his entitlement. You can't take that away from him.
But hang on. It's not It's not an entitlement.
To do well.
But it's not an entitlement. We have an education system that's for everybody. He's not entitled to some sort of special education because he's super clever. Do you know what I mean?
He should come to have a high functioning child.
Yeah, send him off to a private school if that's what you want to do.
But Niall, the fact is that man's kid is not responsible for the education.
No, you've said that a million times, John, tonight. I agree with you. He's not responsible for the education of other children. But that man is responsible for being part of society. And society has to accept that everybody learns differently.
No, it doesn't, Niall. No, it doesn't.
Well, then you're living in the wrong society, John.
That's a liberal concept.
It's not a liberal concept. That's the real world we live in. There are people who are different and learn differently. Doesn't mean they're any worse or any better than anybody else. Some people learn quicker. Some people learn a little bit slower, but they're better. It just depends on the person.
You're talking nonsense.
Oh yeah,
Pure
of course
nonsense.
I am. Of course I am. Yeah.
Yes, you were.
Yeah, you're the only one that's talking sense here tonight. Yeah, you listen to this, Michael. I swear to God. It's like,
no, you're talking through your arse.
There's a table here. See that table in front of me? I swear to God, I get more sense out of it. I swear to God. Listen. It's been. I'd like to say it's been lovely talking to you, but it hasn't, John. Michael, thank you very much indeed. It's been lovely talking to you, Michael, and appreciate you coming on the air. Angela, I know you're very passionate. Thank you, and Eamon as well.
Real people, real opinions.
Real Talk Radio, the multi-award winning Niall Boylan Show.